Hello, good evening, and welcome to Scotland at 7. I'm Hugh Stewart. I'm going to be going over the main stories affecting Scotland and internationally in a few minutes, leading with the story of the settlement of the council workers' strike. But more of that in a few minutes. First of all, on day 191, here are the main points from Russia's invasion of Ukraine. An expert team from the United Nations Nuclear Energy Agency planned to stay at the Russian-held Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant after gaining long-awaited access to the site on Thursday. The physical integrity of the Zaporizhzhia plant had been violated on several occasions, according to Rafael Grossi, the leader of the United Nations team. Russia's ambassador to international institutions in Vienna told IRA Novosti news agency Friday that 2 inspectors would remain permanently at the Zaporizhzhia plant. Ukrainian officials accused Russia of manipulating and distorting information shared with the AEA, that's Ukrainian state-owned operator Energatom. In a statement, the Russian officials are making every effort to prevent the IAEA mission from getting to know the real state of affairs. They spread manipulative and false information about the visit. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on Friday, "We did everything to ensure that the IAEA would get access to Zaporizhzhia, and I believe that this mission may still have a role to play." Unfortunately, we haven't heard the main thing from the IAEA, which is to call for Russia to demilitarize the station. Russia's foreign minister warned Moldova that any action seen as endangering the security of Russian troops in the breakaway region of Transnistria would be considered an attack on Russia. United States federal agents searched properties linked to billionaire Russian oligarch Viktor Vekelsberg in Manhattan, the Hamptons, and an exclusive Miami island on Thursday. Germany's domestic intelligence agency is investigating allegations that 2 senior civil servants could have been spying for Russia. This is according to a report in the German newspaper Die Zeit. Children returned to Ukrainian schools trashed by occupying Russian forces on Thursday. Only schools that are fit for use in areas that do not face the regular threat of shelling and have enough students to opt for in-person teaching will reopen. A senior Russian oil executive, Ravil Maganov, the chair of Lukoil, which is Russia's largest private oil company, died on Thursday after falling from the window of a Moscow hospital. This is months after his company criticized the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Maganov was his second top Lukoil executive to die in mysterious circumstances in recent months. And finally, Russian forces have been forcibly transferring Ukrainian citizens to Russia or areas of Ukraine under their control, according to the Human Rights Watch. Forced transfers were a serious violation of laws of war that constitute war crimes and potential crimes against humanity, it said. That's the latest from Ukraine as the Russian invasion continues. Now, our top stories tonight from Scotland. Trade unions have suspended strike action with a new pay deal for council workers being recommended to be accepted, as talks between the unions, COSLA and the Scottish Government reached an agreement earlier on today. The package that will now be put to union members has been created as a result of further funding being given from the Scottish Government to local authorities, despite Scotland receiving no additional funding from Westminster. Commenting, the SNP's member of the Scottish Parliament, Paul McLennan, said, "Everyone will be delighted to see a fair pay deal reached for council workers and the resumption of local services. No one wants the disruption that the strike action causes, so I'm pleased that planned action for next week has been suspended. Given the financial pressures facing households right now, it's completely understandable that workers and unions have been fighting for a fair pay increase, especially for lower paid employees, whom I'm pleased will benefit most from this deal. I welcome that the unions will now take this pay offer as a package to their members, and I'm hopeful they vote to accept it so we can get money into people's bank accounts at the earliest opportunity to help meet the increasing cost of living. People across Scotland are increasingly struggling right now, and we could and should be going even further to provide support to households but the powers to do so lie with the Tory government, who are choosing just to let things get worse. Okay, so those were the words of Paul McLennan, member of the Scottish Parliament, greeting the apparent settlement of the council dispute in Scotland, although some unions will have to vote on that deal, which was agreed today between the unions and the Scottish local authorities. Our second story, the Scottish Government condemns the UK Bill of Rights. Responding to a call for evidence from the Joint Committee on Human Rights, the Scottish Government has reiterated its opposition to the UK Government's Bill of Rights bill, describing the legislation as ill-conceived and harmful. Issues highlighted in the response include the restrictive and regressive effects of the bill, including its reversal of the principle that the European Convention of Human Rights provides a floor and not a ceiling for people's rights. Obstacles to access to justice created by the bill, including its likely impact on judicial decision-making. An unacceptable level of executive overreach, including plans to give UK ministers the power to decide whether existing case law remains effective. And finally, the complaints cited, the fourth one was that unwanted and unwelcome changes made to the bill to Scotland's constitutional arrangement. The Equalities Minister for Scotland, Christina McKelvey, said that the UK does not need a new Bill of Rights. She insisted that the role is already very successfully performed by the Human Rights Act, which has a 20-year track record in delivering justice, including for some of the most vulnerable people in society. The UK government proposals have received widespread condemnation, not just in Scotland, but across the whole of the UK. United Nations experts have also recently written to highlight their concerns. The Scottish Government said the bill will do serious harm to human rights and fundamental freedoms in the UK, and it will badly damage the UK's international standing. Ms McKelvey said the Scottish Government has repeatedly said that there must be no changes to the Human Rights Act which undermine or weaken existing human rights protections. The Bill of Rights bill is ill-conceived and unwelcome. Some of the provisions are confusing and contradictory. It interferes with the constitutional settlement in Scotland by legislating for devolved matters, undermining the Scottish Parliament and Scotland's devolution settlement. The Scottish Government remains committed to protecting the Human Rights Act in its current form. And now a story from Westminster politics. Boris Johnson, the outgoing Prime Minister, has been accused of trying to intimidate and bully an inquiry into claims that he misled MPs over Downing Street parties after Number 10 took the highly unusual step of commissioning a senior QC to scrutinise the legal basis for the process. The opinion by the crossbench peer David Pannick argued that the Commons Committee on Privileges and Standards was proposing to adopt an unfair procedure, as he called it, in examining allegations that Mr Johnson falsely told the committee he knew nothing about lockdown-breaking gatherings. Pannick and Johnson should be permitted a lawyer. Lord Pannick said that Mr Johnson should be permitted a lawyer, and said any sanction on him for inadvertently leading MPs would be likely to have a chilling effect on ministerial comments in the House. However, the 22-page document prompted puzzlement from legal and constitutional experts, who said Lord Pannick was assessing a parliamentary process as if it was a judicial one. Downing Street has declined to release the instructions to Council, which set out the basis for the barrister's opinion. While ministers routinely seek legal advice, it's not known why Number 10 sought it on what will be a matter for Johnson as a backbencher MP. His successor as Prime Minister, expected to be Liz Truss, will take over on Tuesday, with voting in the Tory leadership campaign ending Friday afternoon. That's earlier today. So presumably we now have a new Prime Minister, but we don't know who it is until Monday. Downing Street declined to say who chose to seek legal advice or who is going to pay for it. In a highly choreographed process seemingly intended to discredit the House of Commons inquiry before it begins in the coming weeks, Lord Pannick's findings were briefed to a handful of friendly newspapers on Thursday night, which ran stories describing his opinion as devastating. devastating for the parliamentary process, that is. Chris Bryant, a Labour MP who stepped back from leading the investigation over his previous criticism of Johnson, said it appeared to be an attempt to intimidate and bully the committee. Okay, a story we've commented on before was the cancellation by the government in London of the Acorn carbon capture project off Aberdeen last year. An SNP MP has condemned the response to a cross-party letter to the UK Chancellor requesting a meeting with representatives of the Acorn CCS Scottish Cluster project as dismal and inadequate. CCS is carbon capture and storage. The Gordon MP, Richard Thompson, branded the Chancellor's refusal to meet with the cross-party group, which included the North East Conservatives as well as SNP MPs, as deeply troubling. The 6 MPs representing Aberdeen, Aberdeenshire and Moray all put their names to a joint letter to the Chancellor back in July requesting this meeting. The letter was passed to Junior Treasury Minister Alan Mack, who responded this week by saying he was not in a position to offer a meeting. Commenting, the SNP's Shadow Financial Secretary and the MP for Gordon, Richard Thompson, said, collectively North East MPs put politics aside to ask the Chancellor for a discussion about the strategic importance of Acorn. To end up with a reply from a junior minister claiming that they're not in a position to offer a meeting is a thoroughly dismal and inadequate outcome. After so many letdowns by the UK government over carbon capture in the North East, this apparent lack of willingness by UK ministers to engage with MPs, even apparently those from their own party, is deeply concerning. There is no transition to net zero without the North East, and the Acorn project is a crucial piece in that jigsaw. That was SNP's Member of Parliament for Gordon, Richard Thompson. Our next story on another contributor to inflation, which is the price of carbon dioxide. One of UK's biggest chicken producers have warned that food security could be under threat and shoppers exposed to a price shock of after more than a threefold surge in the price of carbon dioxide, CO2. Pig farmers, soft drink producers, brewers and bakeries are also being hit by the increase in the cost of this gas, which is used to stun animals before slaughter, as well as in packaging and as an ingredient. Ranjit Singh Bopran, who owns the Two Sisters Food Group, and the turkey processor Bernard Matthews, called on the UK government to take rapid action and consider price capping the CO2 market to ensure supply, as the price rise would add £1 million a week to his business costs. He said the UK requires 2,000 tonnes of CO2 a day, with CF Industries' fertiliser plant in Billingham and Insys ethanol plant in Wilton, both of which are temporarily closing, accounting for 1,300 tonnes, while only 600 tonnes can be imported. CF said it was closing its plant because of the price of natural gas, which is used to make fertiliser, was now twice as high as a year ago, making it uneconomic to produce ammonia, the fertiliser which has food-grade CO2 as its byproduct. The Insys plant is closing for maintenance. Mr Boparan said, "This is a very serious situation we're facing. Once again, UK food security is under threat and the shopper ultimately loses. We simply have no choice other than to pay to keep CO2 suppliers. We have no choice other than to keep paying. The CO2 suppliers say that these increases happen immediately. They say it's a take it or leave it situation." Industry insiders say prices have risen by as much as £4,500 a tonne, up from £1,000 a tonne last week, and just £200 last year, with two major suppliers temporarily closing their facilities for maintenance. This comes after a third site prepares for permanent closure, having temporarily shut in September last year. The cost surge is likely to add pressure on food prices, which already rose by 9% last month, according to the latest data from the British Retail Consortium. And over to America for our next story. And President Biden warned that American democracy was in grave peril by Republican forces loyal to Donald Trump, who fan the flames of political violence in pursuit of power at any cost. In a primetime address from Philadelphia, the city where American democracy was born, the US president said the United States was in a continued battle for the soul of the nation. It was reprising a theme that animated the campaign for the White House in 2020 to frame the stakes of the November elections as an existential choice between his party's agenda and between Republicans' extreme MAGA ideology. MAGA meaning the campaign, the Trump campaign for Make America Great Again. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of the Republic, Biden said in remarks delivered in Philadelphia's Independence Hall. Biden emphasized that not all, or even most Republicans are MAGA extremists, but there was not a question, he said, that the party was dominated, driven and intimidated by his White House predecessor and perhaps would-be successor. These Trump Republicans, the president said, thrive on chaos and don't respect the Constitution or the rule of law. They promote authoritarian leaders and they fan the flames of political violence. He continued, adding that they believe there are only two possible outcomes to election. Either they win or they were cheated. You can't love your country only when you win, Biden said to thundering applause. The unsparing speech was part of a newly aggressive line of attack that Biden has unleashed on Republicans ahead of the midterm elections as his party enjoys the brightening political outlook, helped by a string of significant legislative wins and a building public backlash to the Supreme Court's decision to end the constitutional right to abortion. It also comes as Trump once again is the centre of a criminal investigation, this one involving classified documents, as he lays the groundwork for a potential presidential run in 2024. And talking of the legal pressures on Donald Trump, the FBI has, of course, seized documents from his home Mar-a-Lago in Florida a few weeks ago. Among the items that the FBI retrieved from Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort in August were 90 empty folders marked classified or for return to the White House staff secretary or a military aide, according to a detailed inventory of the items seized from the property, which was made public on Friday. Earlier today, the inventory, unsealed by a federal judge overseeing the ex-president's request to get a so-called special master to determine what materials the Justice Department can use in its investigation, provided the fullest picture to date of what Trump had retained when he left office. In itemising contents of boxes of seized materials, the inventory put together by the Justice Department shows that the FBI received 71 empty folders from Trump's office and 19 empty folders from a storage room when agents executed a search warrant at Mar-a-Lago earlier in August. The empty folders carried one of two designations according to the inventory. Some files had classified banners, while others were labelled "Return to Staff" or "Secretary" or "Military Aid," appearing to indicate that highly sensitive documents were not returned as designated. The exact circumstances behind these empty folders were not clear, but a startling discovery raised for the first the prospect that some of the government's most closely guarded secrets could remain unaccounted for even after the FBI went through Mar-a-Lago and retrieved materials from the property. Federal agents also seized dozens of official government records, some with classifications ranging from confidential to top secret and others with no markings, as well as hundreds of newspaper and magazine clippings from 2008 up to 2020. The inventory shows. The FBI is pursuing a criminal investigation of how the documents were taken from the White House by Trump on his departure and relocated to his Florida home. The Director of National Intelligence is in the process of reviewing the documents to see what possible damage they could do to national security. It says the trove contained items sensitive enough to potentially put US undercover agents at risk. At least 320 classified documents have been recovered from Mar-a-Lago since January. More than 100 of these were seized in the August search. The Justice Department has also released a photograph of folders marked "Secret" or "Top Secret" scattered over a Mar-a-Lago carpet. Some were stamped "No form," indicating they should not be seen by any non-US citizen without permission. Okay, so no doubt we'll hear more of that story as it proceeds against former President Trump. Meanwhile, the flood relief for Pakistan, we reported yesterday that up to 1/3 of that country is under floodwaters. Funding of £500,000 is being provided by the Scottish Government to help with the relief efforts in Pakistan after devastating floods left millions of people homeless and vast swathes of the country underwater. The funding will be split between the Disasters Emergency Committee's Pakistan Floods Appeal and members of the Scottish Government's Humanitarian Emergency Fund panel. International Development Minister Neil Gray said, "More than 1,000 people, including hundreds of children, have lost their lives, and 33 million people in total have been affected by devastating floods, which have left 1/3 of their country underwater." The Scottish Government funding will go directly towards supporting the humanitarian efforts to help all those affected. Local news now. Uig Harbour Works timetable revised. A revised programme of works has been agreed for vital works to upgrade Uig Harbour following detailed consultations with local communities and project partners. The planned outage has been reduced from 24 weeks to 14 weeks, and it will be split over 2 periods, helping to reduce disruption to communities during the works. The first outage will commence on the 16th of January 2023 until the 13th of March. And the second outage will commence on the 30th of October next year until the 11th of December. These changes have been supported by direct investment of £6 million from the Scottish Government. Transport Minister Jenny Gilruth said, "It was very clear in my meetings with Western Isles stakeholders earlier this year that the original plans for Uig outage were not acceptable to island communities. Having convened a number of resilience calls with islanders and stakeholders, I am pleased that we've been able to reach this resolution, which is supported by additional funding from the Scottish Government." Okay, good news on the Uig Harbour then. So let's talk about water efficiency now. Taps, showers, dishwashers and washing machines could all have new water efficiency labels in a move which will help to save 1,200 million litres of water a day. That's the equivalent of 480 Olympic swimming pools across the UK. The plans, which are subject to a 12-week consultation, will encourage the purchase of more water-efficient products and help customers manage their water and energy bills. The proposals aim to introduce a separate water label from the existing energy label for displays on toilets, urinals, kitchen sink taps, bathroom basin taps, non-electric shower outlet devices and shower assembly solutions, dishwashers, washing machines and combination washer dryers. The consultation has been run jointly by the Department of Energy, Food and Rural Affairs and the Scottish Government, plus the other 2 devolved governments. The Environment Minister, Mary McCallan, said, "Climate change is affecting Scotland's water resources, so we must take action to ensure that we manage them efficiently. The prolonged dry weather in recent months demonstrates just how precious and how vulnerable our natural water resources are in the changing climate. Simply by improving labelling, we can make it easier for people to check how water efficient their appliances are and help them to choose the efficient and climate-friendly option when they are able to do so." Okay, we've begun tonight's programme talking about strike action being averted in Scotland, and now we hear of the threat of strike action on the BBC News channel. The BBC's centenary celebrations season could be hit by strike action from corporation journalists concerned about plans to close the BBC News channel. Scrutiny has intensified over the proposed announcement earlier this year to merge the UK rolling news TV channel and its global commercial stablemate, BBC World News, into a new combined service to be called BBC News. The Guardian is reporting that the leader of the Trade Union Congress has written to the BBC's director, Tim Davie, to express concerns that closing the existing BBC News channel would substantially reduce news gathering and airtime for domestic stories and affect, therefore, UK democracy. It echoes fears of some BBC union members who have taken part in a consultative ballot which resulted in a vote in favour of industrial action. According to sources, there's been a strong turnout for the vote, which could now lead to a full ballot, a potential threat to the BBC's coverage of its own 100th anniversary this October. The proposed BBC channel closures and subsequent loss of 70 jobs form part of a £500 million cost-cutting and redistribution mission by Tim Davie to create a digital-first organisation and help to achieve cuts of £285 million a year, necessitated by the government freezing the licence fee for 2 years. Director General Davie is due to visit news channel staff on Friday, but corporation insiders are concerned the Director General does not realise the on-screen impact of the proposals. The new BBC News will show news for international and British audiences, with adverts only shown abroad, and the UK opt-out stream to cover big domestic stories, including reporters and breaking news items. That will simulcast BBC Breakfast, BBC One bulletins, Newsnight, and the visual version of Radio 5 presenter Nicky Campbell's show. Okay, so that's all we have tonight. So it's a short programme, and we will be back on Sunday lunchtime with the full Scottish, which is our discussion with a couple of interesting guests on the top stories we've been looking at during the week. So that's all we have for you tonight. So thanks for watching. But before I go, can I remind you that we at Broadcasting Scotland depend on the generosity of our supporters. So to everyone who has donated, and everyone who's signed up to make a regular monthly payment, thank you very much. Now, if you'd like to be one of our supporters, please look at the website. It's on the screen below. And if you follow the link, it would be great, really, if you could click on even just starting £5 a month. And the more people we do that, the more programmes we will be able to make. So you can become one of our team. You can become a Broadcasting Scotland supporter, starting at £500 a month. I hope you can manage that. I know everyone's skint, but £5 a month would be great. It's just 2 cappuccinos, okay? Now, so we are on a recruiting drive. We want to get 10,000 subscribers. And if we can do that, we will be a full news channel for Scotland. And I think you'll agree with me. We need one. Right, so thanks very much for watching tonight. So that's all from Scotland at 7. I'll be back Sunday lunchtime. I'll see you later. Bye.